transmission 100218.
Welcome to Porcelain Peak, a strange and scary podcast covering all things horror and science fiction. Here are your hosts, Anthony, John, and Anthony.
Welcome back, Porcelain Peeps. You are listening to Season 2, Episode 29. I am your host for this episode, and I am Anthony, and I'm joined by John and other Anthony, as the intro said.
Hello.
How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty all right. This is a weird anomaly. We're recording in the lovely hot-ass afternoon. It's been an interesting week for sure. Today is my wife's birthday, so hoping
Happy
to try
birthday, wife.
Yeah, hoping to try to put together a little mini celebration in order to help her ring in 30, making it look great.
Ugh.
What about you, Silva?
Time to shuffle off this mortal coil. Yeah, I'm doing well. Like I was saying to you earlier, I feel like this week between recordings has been especially long. It's felt like it's been forever since we've seen each other. So I was definitely excited, and I was especially excited because of what we're talking about. I think this is going to be a very interesting episode. But yeah, my week's been, as usual, full of watching a ton of movies. I got some of my new horror stuff that was like taking forever to come in because of all the slowed down orders. So I got my new Texas Chainsaw Massacre shirt that I'm very
pretty
excited
tight.
about.
All right, so as Anthony mentioned earlier, today we have a pretty exciting topic, especially for him, and it is that we are talking about the underrated sci-fi movie Upstream Color. So if you haven't seen this episode is going to contain some spoilers for that, although even if we talk about it, you still might not understand this movie.
Pretty good chance, yeah.
So I thought it was a little confusing, so I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say about it. And if you haven't seen this movie, then go check it out. But before we get into our main discussion, let's go ahead and jump into our news.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. That's the prime time, bitch.
It's just in.
Radio, not invented yet.
Are you guys ready?
I am very lonely.
Okay, so I'll get things started. One piece that I have is we mentioned either last week or the week before that J.J. Abrams was working on some shows for HBO Max. One of those shows is going to be called Lovecraft Country, and he's going to be partnering up with Jordan Peele. And this show is going to take place in the 1950s and follow a group of people as they search for the main character's father. And so the group of people are black, and so it's supposed to show some of the racist struggles through white America, and there's some monsters that take place. From the trailer I watched, the monsters look very JJ, and the story looks very Jordan. So I think it'll be an interesting blend.
I mean, that sounds like a win. I mean, because JJ is good at creating a dope monster, but Jordan's definitely better when it comes to telling a story that doesn't feel like it's overwrought or that it doesn't have like any novelty to it at all. You know, having something completely feel like it's original. Jordan's got that in spades.
This subject matter, I feel like, is good for him just because he seems to put a lot of his like heart and soul into projects that involve this subject matter. I even feel like Twilight Zone, he almost didn't get as much of an opportunity as he would have wanted to put those undertones into the episodes. There are episodes that go strong for it, and then there are other episodes that's not as much of a presence. And I feel like if he had more creative control over that series, it maybe would have had a more complete social commentary or something like that.
Yeah. More closely related to the old ones.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that a project where he is going to be hopefully more closely involved and also have somebody who can, I feel like I would hope that they can rein each other in. I feel like maybe they can create some sort of partnership where they can shave off the rough edges of like each other's creative processes.
That's all I had, though. So, John, I'll go ahead and shoot it over to you for some more.
Yeah, so I had a couple of things. I know for sure that as of right now, Wonder Woman 1984 is currently on the back burner awaiting its opportunity to release to theaters. But during that wait, I guess Patty Jenkins has been very busy and has refloated the rumor and I guess added some actual credence to it that there's going to be an Amazon's related spinoff. So that should be interesting. I don't think she's released any data as to exactly what she's planning on doing with it. But I mean, some of the best parts of the original Wonder Woman were the scenes on the island. So I think that following that cast of characters, if they bring back some of those actors and have them, prominently featured in this, I think that would be a pretty cool series for sure, or film.
And it's very smart if they're trying to have their own Game of Thrones thing that everybody seems to be rushing for. This seems like a smart property to do it with because you get kind of the best of both worlds. You can do the superhero side, and then you can do the more maybe political Amazonian thing that. So you can have your movies where everything's all explodey, crazy, and then you can have your TV show, which I'm just guessing at this point. I'm spitballing. I don't know what kind of TV show it's going to be, but I feel like that's probably the direction they would probably want to head into is do more of a political intrigue, kingdom, Game of Thrones type thing.
And even if they go with the film route, they can even do things more closely to Black Panther, where it's kind of the
culture.
Either way, a bunch of beautiful women on an island, I am all for.
Kind of in the sci-fi vein, I have two. One is that I saw that Cate Blanchett apparently is in talks to play the character Lilith from the Borderlands video game in a movie adaptation. The other bit of kind of sci-fi news I had is that LeBron James randomly the other day posted a picture of himself wearing...
LeBron James.
He
posted a picture of himself wearing a Space Jam ball cap that said Space Jam, The New Legacy, or A New Legacy. And then basically by that evening, it had been announced that this Space Jam thing we've been talking about for years with LeBron James is legit. Actually, I did want to touch briefly following up on a conversation that we had about the Universal and AMC thing, with AMC deciding that they are not going to show Universal movies for the foreseeable future. I read that entire announcement from both parties and then watched a video kind of analyzing the benefits on either side of this negotiation tactic. Mm-hmm. And basically it kind of was exactly what we were saying, is that AMC is already close to filing for bankruptcy. They can't afford to lose the amount of money that Universal sends to their theaters with their movies. And from the numbers that actually have been looked at, as much as you can look at numbers for Trolls World Tour, Universal made gangbusters on that movie.
Really?
So they made less money overall than the first film, but because most of that money came back in-house, rather than going to a distribution company and then to a theater. On top of that, it was a pretty staggering difference as far as their take home.
That's where the real thing that interested me, that I think is the most important thing to think about, comes into play, is that when Universal sends a movie to a movie theater like AMC, they are getting back about 50 to 60% of the return on that movie.
50 is the commonplace.
50 usually.
I think it depends too on the size of the movie. And then how the theater negotiations.
Yeah, these are just rough numbers, but they get about 50% back. When they release to VOD, they get closer to about 80% of the return back on the movie, which obviously for Universal is a super hey, we should just do this. That makes 100% sense.
Specifically for something like Trolls World Tour, because if you're talking about a blockbuster,
yeah. And that's where it's going to really depend on what moves Universal makes going forward in terms of which movies they decide to put to VOD. And then it does seem like Regal has made a couple comments, and I did say that they had said something about we'll respect studios that respect the theater window. So they're basically jumping with AMC and saying, hey, if you don't respect the theater window, we're not going to show your movies.
Right.
But it reminds me a lot of the whole Sony and Spider-Man and Disney thing that happened, where a lot of this is negotiation tactics, and we shouldn't get too worked up about it until the end result in probably a few months, when it actually matters, when these theaters start opening. But that's something that I just wanted to follow up on, because I do feel like it's an important ongoing conversation, kind of what the state of movie theaters is going to be like when they open back up.
Well, it makes sense that they would get more money for the VOD stuff, but at the same time, you pay for VOD, all three of us watch it, so they only get that from one person, maybe $20. But if you go to a theater, then that's $10 at least for you, $10 for me, $10 from John. So I wonder if it's going to be pretty even.
Well, I tend to go to the movies, three of us stacked inside of a large trench coat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm
like
getting...
the little rascals.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just a 15-foot tall human.
I'll be in the back.
I'm Mr. Person. How do you do?
But you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're getting less money, but more sales versus less sales and more money. So I feel like it's probably pretty close. If there's anything that we missed, or you want to comment or share anything that we talked about, then feel free to do so. But in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and get started with that trivia.
Trivia!
Here's how we play. I ask a question. If you get it right, Steve lives.
Please don't do that.
Come on, it'll be fun.
Please.
It's an easy category.
Please.
Movie trivia. Or even give you a warm-up question.
Don't do this. I can't.
Name the killer in Halloween.
Okay, in typical fashion, I will be reading to John. John's going to read to Anthony, and Anthony's going to read back to me. And our first category is Monster. John, what was Army of Darkness from 1992 originally going to be titled?
I'm going to say Evil Dead 3.
Ooh, that is incorrect. I didn't know this, but this is actually hilarious. The Medieval Dead.
Oh, that's great. That's fucking incredible.
Damn, I am really pissed that that's not.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want like a shirt.
So now we got to get you a Star Beast Alien shirt and a Medieval Dead Army of Darkness shirt.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll keep those in mind.
All right.
And try not to get sued making those.
All right. What German electronic band composed the music for Near Dark from 1987?
I don't know. I'm just going to guess Goblin. I think they're Italian and not German, but I'm not sure.
Oh, it is not Goblin. It is Tangerine Dream.
Oh my gosh, that's the only other one I would have guessed. That's fucked up. No points for me. Perez, who directed Near Dark from 1987?
I don't know. John Carpenter.
Ooh, no, I'm sorry. It was actually our girl Catherine Bigelow.
Oh, shit.
Catherine Bigelow.
All right.
Male Gigolo. That's a bummer.
All right. So at the end of the first round, that is 0-0-0 across the
Really
board.
glad we decided to film the least exciting game of trivia.
Hey, it's still a tie game.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go to Gore and Disturbing. And John, your clue is, what is the name of the band Mari Collingwood and Phyllis Stone are going to see at the start of Last House on the Left from 1972?
I'm going to say also Goblin.
That is incorrect. The band was Bloodlust.
Yeah, I wasn't going to get that. In Teeth from 2007, which character is not subject to the titular trait of Don O'Keefe? Ryan, Bill, Toby, or Brad?
I don't know. Toby.
Ah, it's Bill.
All right. Well, gonna throw you a little curveball here, Perez. In Teeth from 2007. What possession does Don O'Keefe throw off a cliff?
A penis.
You would think, but no. Actually, it was her purity ring.
Makes
Symbolic,
sense.
you know.
Yeah. All right. Well, in this exciting game of trivia, after round 2, we are still all at 0. And
The
we're
fans are probably just like, "Wow, you guys suck."
You guys don't know shit. Just started a losers podcast.
Don't know shit about two specific movies.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and jump into psychological, and that's the answer side. John, in what 1978 film did Anthony Hopkins portray a ventriloquist slowly losing his sanity?
Ooh, I know this one.
I'm just going to go out on a wide limb and say Dead Silence.
Magic.
That is incorrect, John. It is Magic.
Oh, bummer. Which actor played the eccentric millionaire Frederick Lauren in The House on Haunted Hill from 1959?
That would be Vincent Price. Good evening.
Good evening, it is Vincent Price. Someone's finally on the fucking board.
Woo! All right, Perez. Let's really hope this isn't a House on Haunted Hill question. Which character is spared by Kevin Wendell Crumb in Split from 2016? Casey Cook, Claire Benoit, I don't know, or Marcia?
I'm not sure, so I'll just say Casey Cook.
Yeah, you are correct. That is Anya Taylor-Joy's character. Yes. Good job. We're picking it up now, finally.
All right, so at the end of round 3, that brings us to 0, 1, 1, and we're going to move into the paranormal category. John, in Carrie from 1976, the blood of what animal is poured on the titular character on prom night?
That's going to be some pig's blood.
That is correct. Now we're all on the board.
Glad to be on the board. All right. In Ouija Origin of Evil from 2016, it was based on a product sold by what company?
Hasbro?
It is Hasbro!
All right, Perez. In what year is the Blair Witch Project from 1999 set?
I'm torn between
Twirn?
two. Torn between T.
He's ripped in twain.
I'm going to say 97.
Ooh, so close. It was one of those 90s years. It is 1994.
Ooh, 94.
All right, so at the end of round 4, that puts us at 1 for John, 2 for Anthony Silva, and 1 for me. And we're going to move into that killer category. John, what is the name of the primary antagonist never caught by police at the end of Wolf Creek from 2005?
Tight. A movie I haven't seen. I'm going to say that the name of the character that escaped and was not caught in Wolf Creek is Charles Fuck.
Classic answer.
Dr. Charles Fuck, MD.
You know, one of these days you'll guess that and it'll be right. I mean,
I don't think it can be.
monkeys at a typewriter.
That is incorrect. His name was Mick.
Like Jagger?
I don't know.
All right. American Psycho from 2000 was based on a novel of the same name by what author?
That would be Bret Easton Ellis.
It is indeed Bret Easton Ellis.
Good job.
Thanks.
So at this point, I think that Perez needs to get this one right if anyone's going to stop him on his way to a 5-peat.
Yeah, making him the most decorated winner.
All right, Perez. What director made Funny Games 1997 and its shot-for-shot 2008 American remake?
Jean-Luc Picard.
Michael Haneke. It was actually Michael Haneke.
Well, that's a bummer. So that puts us at 1-3-1 as far as points go. And we're going to hit that last category, which is international. John, what is the name of the all-girl J-pop group in Suicide Club from 2001?
I feel like we've gotten multiple Suicide Club questions.
We definitely have. All right, yeah, I haven't seen Suicide Club, so I'm going to say that it's Lady Goblin.
The answer is dessert. It's 2 S's.
Tight.
Because you always want more.
yeah.
Yeah.
I always got to have one more.
The only way I know.
All right, so Let the Right One In from 2008 was based on the novel of the same by what author?
I don't know. I'm going to say it was written by Chloe Grace Moretz Sr.
No, it is most certainly not. It is by John Ajvid Lundquist.
Oh, yeah, John. Yeah. Cool. And then Perez, for your international question, Shudder, with 2 T's, from 2004, is a horror film from what country?
Korea.
Honestly, not a bad guess, but it's actually from Thailand.
Bummer.
Well, that makes you the most streaked winner of Porcelain Peak. Yeah, your peak streak.
Yeah. People always refer to me as the most streaked person they know. Yeah.
The most peak streak.
Just say nobody come after me, okay? Because I will destroy you. Is what I'm saying. I will destroy you.
This got real WWE real quick.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for news and trivia this week. If you enjoyed those segments, then go ahead and subscribe so you never miss out on any of that fun.
And for those of you who are enjoying our new video trivia on YouTube, check out the rest of our show if this piqued your interest at all. Hey, you like my puns?
Not at all. I hate
They're
it.
terrible. But yeah, check it out and enjoy. And we'll probably be doing this a little more often, maybe a little nicer and more zhuzhed next time around.
Anywho's main discussion.
I know this steak doesn't exist. I know that when I put it in my mouth, The Matrix is telling my brain that it is juicy and delicious. After 9 years, you know what I realize? Ignorance is bliss.
Okay, so as mentioned earlier, Anthony wanted to discuss a underrated sci-fi gem. So John and I went into this blind. Neither of us had seen it, but we watched a little movie called Upstream, color directed by, how do you say his name?
Shane Carruth.
Shane Carruth. So you might
And
recognize
starring
that
Shane
name.
Carruth.
Yeah.
And edited and written
yeah.
and music by, yeah.
If you are big in the sci-fi genre, you might recognize that name from Primer. He was the writer, director, and star of that as well. So this one is not about time travel like Primer is. This one is honestly weirder, which I think is a surprising because Primer is so weird.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and throw it over to you. You want to throw out a brief synopsis, and then we'll start talking about this bad boy. So spoilers ahead, just in case.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think I can give a very short, brief, like basically what IMDb would tell you this movie is about.
I think that's probably for the best.
Yeah, so this is a movie that basically I had this idea because I feel like with the amount of movies I've been watching, and people will see from my watch list, like my watch lists have been very long because of all the free time I have. I've been seeing a lot of smaller sci-fi and horror movies, and it's reminded me of movies that I saw in the past that really stuck out to me that I literally have never met anybody else who's seen outside of the internet. And Upstream Color was one of those ones where I was like, I feel like you guys are the perfect guys to talk about this with because it is a movie that can be picked apart endlessly and figured out. And I really wanted to do that with you guys. The basic premise of this movie is two characters through the life cycle of a parasitic organism have their lives bound together in a weird identity bending way. And that's about as far as you can go into the story without really delving into what makes it make any sense or what doesn't make it make any sense. So yeah, I guess I definitely just want to immediately open it up and ask you guys how you felt about this movie. I'm very interested to hear from anybody who sees it, how they felt about it.
John, I'll go ahead and let you start.
All right, yeah. So this movie's weird as fuck. I mean, I think that we're at that point for sure.
And Anthony, you are the only one of the two of you that's seen Primer.
I have not seen Primer.
So
Right.
you had. I wouldn't say that you were even prepared for this movie having seen Primer, like you were saying, but
No, completely different.
yeah, they're basically polar opposites. But I would say you would just at least know that you're probably going to come out confused if you had seen Primer.
I thought that would be the case with Primer because it was time travel, and time travel always is a little weird. I wasn't sure what this was, so I kind of went in expecting time travel in some way. And so I did have a sense of confusion going in. And then, yeah, I was more confused than I was after watching Primer.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I feel like there was a lot of information to take away from this. It's presented in a way where it doesn't hold your hand in any way, shape, or form. Like, it's meant to confuse you. I don't feel like I got very confused. I just felt like there were a lot of scenes where I was like, why?
Yeah.
You know, that was just the prevailing question. Is like, why this and why that way? And by the end, I think I was able to pull a lot more from the story than I originally would have anticipated about halfway in, and I was like, what? Like, where are we fucking going at this point? I do feel like the story itself kind of revolves around the concept of metamorphosis and growth, and so we can dig into that a little bit later, but I want to let Anthony kind of put on wax how he feels before we start the discussion portion of this. But how did you feel about it?
I was very confused most of the time. It's very fragmented. So even though the story is pretty linear, there's a little bit where it's not, it's still very hard to understand a lot of what's happening. But it's fucking weird, and I don't know if it's like that artistically or if it's necessary for the story for it to be like that. So that was a little bit hard. Was Carruth doing it just to tell a story in a different way, or was it necessary for this to make sense? So, I mean, overall, it was pretty confusing. I enjoyed what I was watching. There was some sound and some score that I liked.
And the shots are fucking incredible.
Yeah, it looks a lot better than something like Primer, which was even smaller budget. I think this
Shot
was
on a
like
potato, yeah.
50,000 even. So this was pretty tiny.
Yeah, and I
Shows
think
you what you
Primer
can
was
do.
$7,000 or something. Yeah.
But like John said, your hand's not held. So you have to figure it all out. You have to do a lot of work. And there's no exposition. So no one's explaining anything to you at all.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck, okay. And so you have to figure it out. So I went on and read what this movie was about, and there's a ton of information out there.
Yeah.
And they all seem to come to the same consensus, even with people asking questions to Shane specifically. Now knowing it, I feel like I could watch it again and understand it obviously way more.
Yeah.
There's still parts that I connected to what it's about, and we could talk more about that. But there's still little things that I don't think make a ton of sense. And so overall, I was just like, okay.
Yeah.
But after realizing what it was and understood it, then I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed the fact that the film was well crafted, for one, and two, was challenging.
Yeah.
And because I'm all for a movie where like you were saying before, you have to pick it apart and you have to like discuss it with people in order to kind of figure out what you're watching. I tried to stay away from the internet as much as possible after looking at it. I mean, because once I was done watching, I was like, I need a fucking nap.
Yeah.
Like I just felt mentally exhausted. But it was definitely something where I wanted to learn more, but I wanted to wait a little bit to see with just like essentially my virgin sensibilities to this film, if I got close to the mark.
Yeah.
On one viewing, because I felt like that would be an interesting way to discuss this. But yeah, I mean, let's just kind of dig in as far as the story and everything is concerned. Like I said, I feel like the concept of metamorphosis and growth comes back constantly throughout this.
Yeah.
And free will and almost determinism,
Yeah,
similar to what we
yeah,
talked
I mean,
about last week.
And so
right?
that's what I was going to say is that I'm coming at this, I'll say it right off the bat, and I am the one who picked this movie specifically because first and foremost, it's one of my favorite movies, and so I'm coming at it from an obviously very like biased standpoint. But part of the reason that I wanted to talk with you guys about it is that I didn't necessarily think that you guys would be on the same level of like adoration for the movie as I would, but you would probably have the same level of like interest in what's going on or picking it apart. Which for this movie, I feel like, I showed it to my girlfriend recently, and she liked it, but had basically the same response where she was like, until I pick this apart, I don't really know whether I enjoyed it or not. It's an experience that kind of just washes over you, and you can do the research or you cannot do the research, and it really depends on how the movie affected you when you saw it. I also wanted to pick it because I felt like it was a case of a director like Alex Garland, who does have who has so much creative control over the vision and the idea, taking like a very basic concept and making it into this larger sci-fi world, which is, I was listening to an interview with Shane Carruth, and he said that it was basically like the seed of the idea was loss of identity or, change, metamorphosis, and then the rest of the story bloomed from that main concept. And so I felt jumping from devs to this made a lot of sense in terms of kind of the weird structure. I mean, this really pushes narrative structure to a point that
It's almost unrecognizable.
It's very strange. So I guess we can start just by saying the way this movie is structured, like Anthony said, there's not very much exposition. So if you don't catch on to what's going on at some point, you're probably going to be lost for the majority of the movie. Basically, the entire movie revolves around the life cycle of this maybe alien or just undiscovered organism.
It looks like a maggot, essentially.
Basically, yeah, it's this worm. And the worm is harvested from these orchids, the dirt around these orchids, these blue flowers. And this character uses them to mind control people, hypnotize people so that he can rob them. And he has a system going. He has a whole team. It shows you in the beginning of the movie that the maggot, once it's in your system, it seems to have some sort of ability to meld your consciousness with another person. There are two boys that work with the plants who do a whole big like artsy dance show thing in the beginning.
So that's what's happening there. So they both have the worm in them
and their
connected?
consciousness. Yeah, and so they're testing so that like the one kid tries to hit the other kid and the other kid's arm goes out at the same time and they meet. And so it's showing that they're replicating each other's movements. They're like testing this melding of the consciousness, or it's that they had the worm in them at one point, but it does show them kind of diluting it in the water.
Well,
so
yeah,
I feel
they
like,
made like a tea almost, and then
so I would think it's like shrooms or something, where it's like if you take shrooms, you're gonna have a different experience
From the
than
same
maybe if you
worm.
make like a tea or something. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's something that I feel like, I don't have 100% grasp on exactly how that whole system works, but I don't think it's terribly important to the rest of the story.
I think that's kind of just to help you piece more stuff together.
Yeah, and rewatching it, I had forgotten that the movie actually gives you that much in the beginning of like showing you the process of them harvesting the worms and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is so helpful, because in my head the movie skips over that, and I was going straight to what's the bulk of the story, which is two characters who, Well, the female character played by Amy Seimetz, she is kidnapped by this man pretty horrifyingly. It's a pretty horrific scene. She's attacked in the rain and has the worm forcefully put into her, basically, and then spends an indeterminate amount of time, it seems like, being brainwashed by this guy into just doing repetitive activities.
So the worm helps you succumb more to the hypnosis of what he's doing with all the activities.
Yeah.
But that's still part of the hypnosis, yes or no?
Yeah, so I think the idea is that it's like his go-to process for keeping the person occupied and in that state for as long as he wants them to, until he decides that he's done with getting all their money and everything and dropping it.
So the
I also
worm makes
think-
you more susceptible.
I think the worm is the primary catalyst for sure. But I also do think that it's also a situation where the more batshit and off the wall he makes it seem, the less likely it is that there'll be a trail when they're out of that state. So looking and seeing just food everywhere and like checkers spilled out all over the place and like the house torn asunder covered in blood and shit. Like it makes it a lot less likely that you'd be like, oh, there's an actual real trail that I could follow, especially considering he touches almost nothing aside from like the water and that sort of stuff. So I think that also plays a part as well.
So one of the reasons I ask is because, and we'll get to it too, where after she's with what I guess is only known as the thief, she goes to the pig farmer, but he doesn't do any kind of hypnosis.
With sound.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
So my interpretation of why he was having her build the paper chains and do the checkers is that they are kind of like just menial tasks to keep her busy while he is siphoning her money. You know, she basically loses her job, empties out her bank accounts, gives her
house away.
Yeah, gives her house away, and he basically ruins her life with her under this hypnosis. Has her read, which ends up becoming a bigger concept in the movie. Has her read specifically Walden by Thoreau and make a paper chain where she has to write down the pages from the book and make them into this long chain. And it's kind of getting ingrained into her mind because she's just doing it over and over again. Eventually, once he's done with what he's doing, he drops the hypnosis, drops the wall, tells her she can start eating, and she just gorges herself. He leaves, he disappears, and she ends up kind of basically, you have a pretty, again, horrifying scene of what looks like the worm crawling around inside of her body.
Yeah.
So that's when she kind of realizes that, one, what the hell just happened? Like, what happened to my life? And two, now she's on to the fact that there might be something like inside of her.
But then doesn't she call someone and is like, I can't get it out?
No, I don't think she calls anyone. I'm pretty sure she just...
It's when she shows up to the hypnotist. She says, I can't get it out.
Because so essentially from what I was able to...
The pig farmer.
So why does she go there?
Because of the sound.
Yeah, so he sets up all the speakers and everything. And that's why he's capturing those specific tones and sounds. He's out and just collecting all of that noise. Is he uses this? It's a specific sonic wavelength that he's using that reflects against that hypnosis that's going on. That's able to basically convince her system to be like, follow this. And I guarantee that it has to do with the parasite.
So how is he in communication with her though? Because later on it's through the pig.
So my theory on this,
You know what I mean?
My theory on this is that the sound that he's using he's part of this whole process. Obviously, it's revealed later that he is integral to making the life cycle of this organism work in the way that he and the thief and everybody want it to work. Because it shows when he uses that pulse, it cuts to a shot of the dirt, and basically all the worms and things from the ground underneath are coming up to the surface. And so he's using like a general pulse that he knows works on drawing in people who are still infected by this worm. So
even though he hasn't had access to the worm yet.
Yeah, so it's just drawing them in because it's whoever has this worm in them, he's drawing them in.
Showing it's a perfected system.
Yeah, so he knows what he's doing. So he's like, cool, I know the thief. He's probably incommunicado with the thief. The thief's like, I did this to somebody new, draws him in, and then does the process of removing the worm and transplanting it into a pig. So he does this in a trailer out in the middle of nowhere and transfers the worm into the pig, which you would think would release her from whatever this infestation is, but it seems to just kind of start the next part of the life cycle, which is that she is now intertwined in some like mental link with the pig that now has her parasite. As the movie progresses through a series of cutting back to the farmer doing different things, it's kind of revealed that this is the case for a lot of people. All of these pigs have the parasite that have been transferred from people that had them, and therefore all of these people's lives are intertwined kind of around what the pigs are doing in their lives.
You said something that I want to talk more to you guys about. So it sounds like you do think that the thief and the farmer are connected.
Yes, 100% they are.
Because there'd be a chance that they're not. The thief does his thing, and then the farmer is just putting out the sound, searching for somebody to come. Maybe he just knows that every once in a while he gets a new person to come, so maybe he's just putting out sound.
Well, they discuss it later down the line. So as far as like when he's discussing with somebody about incoming piglets, that one of the pigs is pregnant, that he has a guy for the piglets, and then
which he means he's going to throw them in the river because that's the plan.
Yeah, and then from there, the parasite does something to the blood and the cells of the piglets, causing them once they go through that process, it's basically like the parasite is also getting to mate and lay eggs, and then from there that breaks open, gets into the plants, which causes more
changes the upstream color of the flowers.
Okay.
Yeah. So so I thought the same thing because I didn't remember every aspect of this cycle when I was watching it, and it did click together a lot better because I've seen it so many times and read about it now that it made a lot more sense this time, which I totally agree with what you said earlier. I think that is the best way to enjoy it, is to watch it and then watch it again after some time and then kind of have your definitive like idea of how you feel about the movie. But yeah, so he draws her in, moves the worm. She goes back out trying to... This is where I feel like the movie could be the most confusing in terms of like it almost is like it's performing filmmaking time travel, because then it just starts quickly cutting to her being on the bus. And
a year passes in the course of 5 minutes.
Yeah, and it's just all clips of her on the bus, and there's really no dialogue of her and Shane Carruth's character finding out they have this mental link of some sort and then spending time with each other. That all happens basically almost entirely without dialogue and through a series of maybe a couple minutes of quick cuts to get us to the point of establishing, okay, they know something's up and they know they're somehow mentally linked. Their relationship, I think, is really interesting because you wonder, it borders sometimes on being, are they in love with each other or are they just mentally entangled, and is there a difference?
Or are there pigs in love?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where you start to see that the farmer at one point talks about how the pigs don't let anybody come near them. They're very overprotective. They spend all their time with each other. And that's reflected through the events of the movie going forward as things start to escalate with these pigs. Things start to escalate in the lives of our two main characters.
They seem to have a lack of self-control when it comes to certain things. Like the things that they say, the loops that they get stuck in repeating are things that I guess would be derived from the pigs. That's what it seems like, at least. It seems like there's shades and leftovers of the hypnosis as well, like going back to Walden again, Yeah,
and that becomes a repeating thing. Every track of the score, which is probably one of my favorite parts of the movie, by the way, also done by Shane Carruth, is named after a line from Walden. And kind of becomes this thing where Amy's character starts repeating these lines while she's swimming. She starts almost like having visions. It seems like as things are progressing through the life cycle, things are getting more extreme in terms of the melding of their identities.
From what I was reading, it's the motherhood aspect. So because the pig was pregnant and Chris, Amy's character, was, I think, not able to get pregnant.
Yeah, she finds out that she at some point might have had a cancer.
And carcinoma, I think.
Yeah. Part of it was saying that the loss and the sadness is so strong, and the pig's babies are ripped away from her, that causes such a heightened emotion that it started to break down the wall between the hypnosis and the parasite. So she was able to kind of start remembering bits and pieces from Walden.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the point, because up until that, the movie seems to kind of listlessly travel through like little vignettes of just them having different like activities together, or there's a scene where Shane Carruth's character senses that something is up with Amy's character and becomes suddenly violent, or becomes aggressive and starts chopping down trees in the yard because the pig is aggressive, which I feel like is probably the most confusing part of the movie, is the sound engineer, that guy who, there are just scenes of him walking around and just picking up like Foley sound.
The sampler is what they call it.
The sampler, yeah.
He's the farmer and he does sound engineering.
Yeah, so he's sampling these sounds. And what I was able to pick up through like research and having rewatched it is that he seems to derive inspiration for his music from the lives he's able to look into from visiting the pigs. So it's kind of revealed that he has the ability to go up to these pigs and see into the lives of the people who they are melded with.
Almost like a viewing window John Malkovich kind of thing. Huh?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it reminded me of. And so through that, he's able to like get inspiration for his music, and that's, I would assume, why he is invested in being a part of this life cycle, is that it gives him some sort of artistic, creative fulfillment.
And I'm sure,
or something.
and based on the equipment and stuff that he has, I'm sure he also is paid, because I mean, at the end of the Thief's run with Chris, I mean, he's already taken, I think it was like $36,000 on top of some weird old antique coin collection and other odds and ends. I mean, that's a lot of cheddar to spread around for around a week's worth of work.
Yeah, so it's revealed that her pig counterpart, Amy's pig counterpart, is pregnant. So then Amy has a period of time where she believes that she is pregnant. She's feeling as if she is. It's revealed that she's not, and that she does not have the ability to have children. That's around the point when the babies are taken from the pig. And so that kind of sets her off on this spiral of kind of breaking down the entire structure of this, up until this point, pretty seamless process of getting this life cycle to continue. This is when she starts seeing more of the visions of the flowers. She starts to see more glimpses into what's actually going on, and starts kind of mindlessly repeating the lines from Walden.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jeff starts telling kind of childhood stories of things he remembers.
But some of those are Chris's stories.
But yeah, and that's what I felt was the most kind of entertaining and interesting part of this whole process, was seeing her kind of get upset with him, because their brains are kind of like, they're remembering each other's memories, and he has a bad habit, it seems, of kind of stealing her memories. But at that point, you don't know whether that's true or not, or whether she's remembering his memories. And so, yeah, she get to a point where she is swimming and she's repeating these lines from Walden. They kind of realize that that's part of the key to figuring out what's going on with them, is this book is somehow connected, which I guess would be because every person had to do basically what she had to do when they were under this hypnosis, which is write the pages from Walden. So they also
have it internalized pretty heavily.
Have it internalized like at a deep subconscious level. And so Jeff and Chris are able to track down where
the sampler
is and where the pigs are.
And he realizes that they found him. So then that takes us to a really weird scene, and we could talk more about this, where they're in sort of an abandoned warehouse.
And so it's the parking structure outside of Jeff's work.
Okay.
Yeah, because they show that in a previous scene.
Because there's like a table and chairs and stuff.
Yeah, there's a table and chairs, but it's just like in the dead center of the parking structure is what it looks like to me.
And that scene is very confusing. What I gleaned from it is that it's supposed to be that by this point, Chris has decided to go off on her own to confront the sampler.
Okay.
And Jeff is entangled with her mind. So he is sitting in the structure at his work, seeing what she's seeing, which is basically her confronting
Jeff's
and then
sampler.
He's at the same time is, for lack of a better term, warging through the pig into Jeff's life, and then she sits down because she's tangled in.
Yeah, so they're all three tangled in each other's.
So Jeff's actually physically in the
place,
the parking structure.
Yeah, and nobody else is.
Okay. And Sampler's at home, and Chris is on her way there?
Yeah, when she gets into the scene and walks into the scene, I think is when she arrives at the sampler's farm. And
so
then,
they're physically together elsewhere?
At the farm.
Okay.
Yeah, and so then at that point, she ends up taking a gun that we saw earlier in the movie, which I thought was good that he made sure to show the gun and then use it in the end. Yeah, it's seen under the floorboards when she's getting the money for the thief.
It's also on the bed during the like freak out scene before they get in the bathtub.
Yeah, so she ends up shooting the sampler.
I think he goes into cardiac arrest first, though.
Yeah,
like he has a heart attack.
Yeah, it might have been something to do with maybe the stress of intermingling with more than one person's.
Or I think it's the fact that he was noticed.
Yeah.
That she knew he was there because she was looking at his physical person.
I'm noticing you notice me, and I'm wondering if you're noticing me notice you.
Yeah, that's a summary of this movie.
So she gets away with murder, we're led to believe.
I mean,
this is a pig farm.
I mean,
yeah, there are no tigers.
Well, I also think that he probably like had no ties to anybody. It seems like he kind of was out in the middle of nowhere,
lived off the radar,
had to be tracked down, yeah, sort of thing.
Well, I mean, he's got to be in contact with somebody if he has music distribution.
It's all sound like anonymous SoundCloud. He's just called the sampler. Yeah,
or is it like it's like Quinoa Farms or some
yeah,
shit?
Quinoa Farms.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she shoots the sampler.
I was just waiting for it to pan down in the mailbox and be like 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah.
Oh shit, JJ, you've done it again.
Cloverfield, Upstream color. So this is where the movie starts to kind of wrap up. So she kills the sampler who had been a part of this process by taking the pigs that were now infested with the parasite, dumping them in the river, which is changing the color of the flowers, starting this whole thing over.
And breeds the worms.
Breeds the worms and everything. By killing him, they are putting a halt to the cycle, basically. And then they, in a classic, let's get the gang together, solve the mystery, which is also, I think, the best musical cue of the movie. When things really pick up is when they're at the table and they start just pulling out Walden and all the pages. And, and they start kind of piecing things together about what's going on. And then they proceed to send a copy of Walden to all of these people because they're now, I guess, through the sampler that they're able to get everybody's information?
It seemed like,
I believe
box.
so.
Yeah, so they find a box that has everybody's information because he has it. Okay, so yeah, they're able to get everybody together, and then I think the rest of the movie is wordless.
They basically, from what I was able to glean, they basically start like a commune at the pig farm. They just take over. They get them out of the small enclosure they were in, and they open them up to a larger portion of the farm and allow them to kind of live their lives. They definitely show like a piglet, like they allow them to breed and do like what they normally would do and live their lives just like if they were humans. And then from there, like we get to see Chris cradling a pig during the same scene where they were cutting back and forth between that and the thief basically being like, oh shit, there ain't no more blue orchids. What the fuck are we going to do?
Yeah, they go back and they find that the orchids are their normal color. They haven't changed with the parasite, so they're fucked.
Yeah, they know that the grift is over.
Yeah, and so then they proceed to renovate the farm, and the movie ends with a pretty sweet shot of, sweet as in it's sentimental, of Chris holding a piglet, which is obviously very important to her and very symbolic. Yeah, and it's a very
do we
sweet
think
cap on everything.
that the orchid company is in on it at all, or they just lucked out?
I would imagine that they have to be connected in some way. Because what's going to stop them from selling those orchids to somebody else?
Well, they might be, but what is that? The other person doesn't know the properties of the worm, so they probably just throw them out or kill them. Or
Well, I think, I don't think that they let the worms get out to random people, because I think when they harvest the orchids, they're removing all of the worms for their own use.
Oh.
And then repotting the orchids, because I think that's what's showing in the beginning is they're repotting the orchids and then stamping them with the company. Mm-hmm. And to me, the company, based on the logo, and I might just be reading into this, but to me it seemed like a pretty like small town like flower shop type company. So I don't think there's some big corporation who's like plotting to take over the world or anything. So basically we're led to believe that things are going to be better for everybody who's connected to these pigs because they've renovated the farm and they've made the life better for the pigs. I mean, it's ambiguous as to how long that lasts, or if anything's going to change, or when the pigs pass away, what's going to happen with them, if it's going to...
There was another scene that showed another couple all together, and this scene, I think, was meant to show us other people have been affected by the thief and the sampler.
Yeah.
But I thought it was very confusing.
Are we talking about the sick woman?
Yeah, and her husband.
And then the looping, right?
Right, the looping. Is that real? Is that really happening in any way?
I think it is real.
To me, it seems like that couple is like in the later stages of where Jeff and Chris are headed, because Jeff and Chris start doing the same thing later on when they're like, they might be starlings. I think they're starlings. They might be starlings. And they start just repeating conversations over and over again. And it's kind of showing that at some point they might get so entangled that they're just stuck in like an endless loop of doing the same thing over and over again. So if Jeff and Chris don't somehow stop this cycle, this is where this ends up.
Yeah.
Is with them basically being in an endless loop.
And
having no like specific identity or free will.
Yeah, basically until one of them gets sick and dies, or one of their pigs gets sick and dies.
Yeah, I think that's just supposed to be showing us this is the extreme example of what's going to happen to our main characters if they don't stop this. It kind of puts a little bit of a clock on the process.
I do feel like I had a better understanding of this because of our first round of sci-fi misses. I feel like I wouldn't have understood this as well as I did if I hadn't watched Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah.
Because it has a lot of similarities to that, I feel like. It's a little more dialogue and exposition heavy than this is. I think this is like the advanced version of that kind of story.
I did watch an interview with Carruth where he said that he does edit and structure the movies extremely deliberately, to the point where apparently like the way he writes his scripts, basically every action is supposed to take a certain number of time on the screen. And it'll be consistent for a certain amount of time thematically. So it'll be like 3-second shots for this amount of time for 5 minutes for these actions. And then we're going to change. And then we're going to change to a series of stable camera. And he talked about in this movie, he begins it with a very fixed camera with Amy and the hypnosis. And then as the movie progresses, he changes to more like handheld, disorienting, quicker cuts, quicker editing. And it seems to be very intentional to help reflect continuing disorientation. And then also it does seem like he likes to make these movies that are more of like an experience, like a wave of an experience. But I do think it's a movie for anyone who wants to be challenged by something, or if you liked Primer, which is a movie that I love. Like that movie I still don't completely understand, and I've read the charts and I've looked at all the diagrams and everything, and there are charts that exist for this movie that show the pigs and the worms and the whole cycle of the thing, so you can better understand that.
One thing that I thought was interesting that came up in some of the reading I was doing was saying that the stuff in Primer is pretty legitimate from what he made and from what we know about time travel, I guess. And it was also saying that the stuff in this is probably pretty plausible. There are parasites out there now that infect other animals and make them kill themselves, essentially. They'll climb up to a high branch and jump off.
Well, there's the fungus that takes over ants.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that's where they got like the basis for The Last of Us. For the infection for that is from that specific fungus.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I think if I watched it again, I would enjoy it even more. Now that I have sort of an understanding, and then from that, I can kind of piece together what's happening. Oh, this is that, this is that, this is them feeling that, this is them seeing this, and that kind of thing, versus just watching a segment of clips, really.
Yeah, and I was really happy that was I can speak to that experience, because this was the first time I sat down and watched this movie and felt like I, from beginning to end, for the most part, understood exactly what was going on. I've been a fan of Shane Carruth since before Upstream Color came out, and so I've followed Upstream Color from when the trailer first dropped and to when it was in festival circuit and everything. And I've been doing the same thing for his other project for years now. So you see it briefly when Chris's character is working on her computer at work. She works in some sort of film or special effects business. You see this weird creature on the screen that she's working on. Mm-hmm. That's from a project that Shane had going on for years called A Topiary, which is this 200-page sci-fi intense script that was going to cost him so much money that he was never able to get it off the ground. So he has and he was doing all the special effects himself for the movie. Probably around 2014, basically right after Upstream Color came out, he announced a movie called The Modern Ocean that was supposed to be based on international shipping and the lives of those involved. This movie was supposed to, as of 2015, include Anne Hathaway, Keanu Reeves, Tom Holland, and Daniel Radcliffe were all attached and had done interviews mentioning how amazing the script was.
Bunch of nobodies, huh?
Yeah. Right? And then in 2018, Carruth did an interview where he said it's not going to happen anytime soon. And in 2019, he said he's working on a massive thing, quote, and will leave the film industry forever after that.
Wow. All right, so let's go ahead and rate this bad boy out of 5 worms.
Give me something a little bit more.
5 mind-controlling worms trapped in a life cycle
of pigs and orchids.
Of pigs and orchids, yeah.
All right. So out of 5 mind-controlling worms trapped in a life cycle of pigs and orchids, I would say it's a fucking shrug emoji out of 5. It's
it defies rating.
Yeah, it's not.
Especially on a first viewing, I don't think it's especially fair to rate it. But
I think that it's masterfully crafted. It is beautifully shot. The sound design is gorgeous. I love how little they say to say so much, if you understand what I mean by that.
Yeah.
I don't think, aside from the fact that it is intentionally confusing, that I could really point at a negative. I felt like it was acted well. Convincing. I felt like they had chemistry. Apparently, they had legitimate real life chemistry.
They
had legitimate real life chemistry. Honestly, I'm going to say that it's a 4.5 until further review. I think that it was thoroughly enjoyable for someone who is like us. I wouldn't say, I'm going to go recommend this to anyone who watches anything.
What about you?
It's the same as what I've had it rated on Letterboxd forever. It's a 5 for me. And that's a 5 that I probably would have said it was a 4.5 when I originally saw it, but it's definitely grown on me to be one of my most beloved movies that I love to talk about. I was very excited, but I had to kind of guard myself because I was like, don't let yourself get if they hate it, if they don't like it, don't let that get to you, because it's fine. This was my super hipster artsy fartsy contribution to this potentially reoccurring segment that we're going to have. So yeah, I'd give it 5 mind-controlling worms stuck in a life cycle of pigs and orchids. And I recommend it to anyone who wants a good challenge and a good score and good music and visuals. It's a show, don't tell sort of movie.
For me, I would say tentatively 3.5. I think that I would enjoy it a lot more on a second viewing, and I think that knowing what you're getting into is important. And I think that if you read about what this movie is or listen to this episode and kind of have an understanding, still going into this movie is gonna be beneficial knowing stuff. I think you could watch it blindly and be like, what the fuck, then read it and then enjoy it, or know what's going on and then watch it and probably enjoy it initially.
It's more about the journey than it is about the story.
There you go. It's about the friends we made along the way and the parasitic worms that mentally connected us.
All right, guys, so that is going to wrap it up for our discussion on the Shane Carruth movie Upstream Color. If you had different opinions or theories, then please drop us a line and let us know how you felt.
And if you want to see us do another segment like this in the future, go ahead and hit us up on any of our socials. We'll probably do it anyway. But we would like to do this kind of like, I'm going to bring a movie to the group that's weird and out of left field and that maybe got brushed over by the public eye, and try to suss out opinions, see if we can get a good discussion going. Because I had a lot of fun with this discussion for sure. And it also enhanced my enjoyability of the movie, I feel like, as well.
Definitely, this is a movie, not that any of our other ones aren't, but this is definitely a movie worth discussing.
Yes.
All right, so then we'll go ahead and jump into our watch list.
Patrick, what is it? Where are you going?
I've got to return some videotape.
Well, I do not have any recommendations this week. I've been finishing my grad school, and I am done with that now, so I have been focused on that and not watching anything. So I will throw it over to you, John, to go ahead and start us off with the watch list.
Well, congratulations on finishing up on school.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's exciting.
So I have been not watching a whole lot of anything. I've been focused on watching this film, and then also I've been piddling around on YouTube as per usual. There is one thing that I've been watching, and have the two of you ever heard of a really crappy corner of the internet called 3 a.m. challenge videos?
No.
3 a.m. challenge videos? I don't think so.
So a 3 a.m. challenge video is a farce, for one thing. And for two, essentially what it is it's somebody who like contacts a spirit or has some type of a cause that basically creates like a small horror skit, and they're all terrible. There aren't any of them that are any good. And some people are very notorious for these, like taking advantage of recently dead celebrities and like all these other things, like saying, that I called like Mac Miller. Like I called Mac Miller at 3 a.m. and this is what happened. And like it's just a terrible corner of the internet, and it needs to go away. But I've been watching this creator called Leon Lush. He's sitting at around like 1.5 million followers, that sort of a thing, and he basically does commentary on creators who take advantage of their audiences and other things of that nature. So he talks about people who do like the 3 a.m. videos and like the horror skits and that sort of stuff a lot, and they're very hilarious, and I would suggest to check them out. It's the only way I would ever suggest to watch anything related to a 3 a.m. video is to watch it with someone like him doing commentary over the top of it. And then the other thing that I did was on May 4th, I went ahead and I picked up a discounted copy of Jedi Fallen Order. And so I started playing that.
Oh, nice.
I'm not very far into it, but from what I can tell so far, it is beautifully crafted, and it is a lot of fun and very frustrating, which I'm cool with all of those things. Like I said, I'll throw my body at the waves until I figure it out. But I'm having a good time with it, and I feel like the story so far is pretty well paced and pretty well pieced together.
The first movie that I had to recommend was actually a recommendation from the We Love Horror podcast. They were recommending some genuinely spooky movies, and one of them was The Taking of Deborah Logan. Have you guys seen this movie?
I'm aware of it. I don't know anything about it, though.
Yeah, so basic premise is documentary film crew goes to look into the life of an elderly woman suffering from Alzheimer's, and you, through the course of the movie, discover that there's a lot more going on than Alzheimer's, and it gets pretty freaky and weird at the end. There's a cave scene that I won't get too in depth with, but it's pretty gnarly. I did check out a movie last night called The Wretched, because this is actually, as of a couple days ago, the leading movie at the box office in terms of movies that are physically playing at theaters right now, which basically just means at drive-ins. It has the biggest box office numbers of basically anything that's physically out in drive-ins right now, and it's a horror movie, so I thought that was interesting. I figured I would check it out. It's a movie that is, again, very similar to Fright Night in that a kid realizes that his next-door neighbor is some sort of grotesque witch and starts trying to figure out how to stop her. It was fun, not anything crazy. I think you might have seen Stuckman did a review on it recently.
I haven't watched the review, but yeah, I know that.
He gave it about a B maybe, which is what I would give it. It's got some cool imagery, good production design, but it's nothing you have to run out and jump at. Did you guys ever get around to watch? Did you ever watch that movie, The Endless?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I was like, I'll check that movie out, because the last time I watched it, I'd fallen asleep like 20 minutes in. So I was like, I'll check out The Endless. Well, I realized that those guys had made a movie called Resolution that is like a spiritual, not prequel, but it's like Endless is a spiritual, I guess, sequel to this movie Resolution.
Oh.
So I was like, okay, I'll go watch Resolution first. And it's not even like spiritual sequel. Like these movies, I feel like should be watched together. And so I'm really glad that I like went back and rewatched Resolution, because I don't know if you remember in Endless, but there are parts of that movie where they show like footage of there's like a drug addict living in a cabin out in the woods, and they go visit him to get a gun at one point.
Yeah.
All of Resolution is that story. It's of the guy going and handcuffing his friend to get him off of meth or crack or whatever. And it's that story, and then the Endless basically is like a continuation. Resolution, I was like, that was pretty good. Kind of confusing. Had a very Lovecraftian, like, whatever ending. After I watched the Endless, the whole thing as a package, I was like, this is great. This is fantastic. Those are probably my strongest recommendations, is go check out Resolution if you haven't already, and then watch The Endless. It's a very, very cool, mind-bendy time loop situation.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that is going to conclude this week's episode. Next week, we are going to be diving into one of our sci-fi misses. So we have another redemption episode for you guys. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what we all picked to watch and see what you guys think of these movies that you haven't seen. So that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I have been Anthony.
I've been John.
And I've been, as always, internet darling, Anthony Silva.
Thank you for listening, guys. See you next week.
Keep it creepy.
You can find Porcelain Peak on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Store, Spotify, TuneIn, and Stitcher. Wherever you listen, don't forget to rate, review, share, and subscribe so you never miss a spine-tingling episode. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and at porcelainpeak.com for additional content. Special thanks to Randy Greer for composing the Porcelain Peak intro music and to Anthony Silva for designing the Porcelain Peak logo. All episodes and additional content is hosted, written, produced, designed, and edited by the Porcelain Peak team, consisting of Anthony Perez, John Brasher, and Anthony Silva.
This has been here words for a Weirdos production.
Hey guys, it's Anthony. Welcome back to my channel. Tonight we're doing a 3 a.m. challenge. We're gonna summon the ghost of Booberry.
Booberry's not a real ghost.
What? Booberry's not a real ghost?
Yeah, man, Booberry's not even a real thing.
Hello, my name is Boo.
What the f***?